Chia here, back for another segment with Christian of Martin's Cantina. You know, I'll give you the bio.
And there was a time, I think in real estate, I'm sure it still exists in particular type of homes where writing a letter to the owner was like very, some sellers or owners and slash sellers are, particularly the old school ones, I like to call it, are like that. Like they want to know who their buyer is.
Right.
You know, the property I bought, it was from a guy, I'll share the story with you in a little bit, but I knew the guy and it was kind of like, that was it. It was like, there's nobody else I would like to sell the property more than you. You know, and when my mom bought a property in Windsor Hills area, the lady was like very particular about certain things, and when she met our family, she's like, I want this family, I want this house to go to this family.
That's how we got our home.
You know,
it was a blessing.
I look at it exactly like that. It's like sometimes in life, you know, blessings get disguised in different ways through different people, and and I agree. I think that sometimes, you know, I think of selling something, you want to be able to give it to somebody that is going to maybe appreciate it or enhance it much more than you did. So yeah, I agree. And that's the thing, going back to the gentrification point about Inglewood, gentrification, all that, it's always like, how can we better our community? That goes to the seminar idea of like, the reason why my dad bought here in the late 70s is the same reason a lot of people did, right? It was cheaper. Santa Monica, Venice, these areas
out of our price range.
Out of our price range, so you have to go to an area where, you know, you were underserved, the schools, you know, were not good. But hey, you can afford to buy a home and
have a community.
So that was like, let's do that. And now that, you know, the tide is shifting in a way that properties are north of $1 million, when honestly, most people bought their house, unless you bought it in the last 5 years, you probably bought it under 500,000. Like 95% of them. Unless you bought it, like you probably bought your house, if you're like my dad, for like 100,000 or something like that, right? So my point is that when you get to a point now where your properties are increased in value, it's very easy for a grandson or a son to, God willing, someone passes away and say, oh, I'm gonna get those $1 million. Like you're gonna blow $1 million very quickly, you know, like you're gonna pay taxes on it and you have to go move to another area. So why not, you know, hold on to it, maybe turn it into a rental or whatever, but create that generational wealth that I think, you know, definitely African Americans, Hispanics, you were deprived from for so many. Just that opening that door to that knowledge was not even there.
Like you said, just having the wise people around you to give you that
and like, oh,
information.
that's how you do it. Like now, some people were fortunate enough to do that, you know, through X amount of reasons, but that's a small percentage. The majority of us, I always say this kind of jokingly, but we're just starting to touch a little bit of money, you know, like we're like, wait, that's how it works? Like the trust, you know, that's how you avoid taxes.
Other people, they've been doing this.
Exactly.
For a long time.
And obviously the scales were tipped for many, many years, right? And so, but I feel like you can do one of two things. You can sit back and complain about that and we can say how all this, or we can say, let's make a change and let's make it in our community, right? And that's where I go back to these seminars and saying like, hey, let's better that. The fathers being in the homes, the mothers being, going back to your point.
Marriage is honorable.
How much of that is impacted, right, in these communities? And the numbers don't lie. I went to Temecula and you see it and it's like, I go back to Inglewood and I'm like, there's a difference. Why? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't like that. Like I like that when I'm there. I think it's great because I can relate to it, but I don't feel comfortable driving back to Inglewood and seeing that my own community where I was born and raised is kind of lacking that. And when you compare the two, you could see the difference. And I'm not just talking about the color of people's skin. I'm just talking about the way that the communities are built, where it's like you're at the park and it's like the family, you know what I mean, and this and I just think that we have a lot of work to do, you know, and you know, that's why when you ask me to do this interview and anyone I get a chance to talk to, I always try to bring it back home, right, and say like, hey, we have to make our own community better. When you look at the restaurant, when you look at what we're trying to do in some of the restaurant concepts, it's kind of the same concept, right? We could take our money and invest it anywhere else, but why not improve it
in our own community?
In our own community? And that can be misconstrued a lot of ways. Some people look at it, oh, the Martins are greedy, oh, the Martins are this. But at the end of the day, it's a love for a community that says, hey, we are entrepreneurs. We want to reinvest in our community, and what better place to reinvest it, right?
Right.
We can go other places, but it doesn't feel normal. It doesn't feel right. And I'm sure that time will come.
I mean, that's giving back, not greedy.
Right, you know, and I'm sure the time will come to get out of Inglewood, because people have been asking forever. It will come, and I think it'll come organically.
Yes.
And I think as you grow, but I think it'll always be, aside from this always being home, it's kind of like it's built a foundation for how to be successful. And I think going into a community, you know, in this case it's our backyard, right? But as I look at the future and say, hey, we're going to open up maybe in another city, how do you get embedded in that community and kind of, you know, support and do all the things that have helped us today be so successful. And we weren't doing it with that intention, you know, like we would if we went to Santa Clarita tomorrow or something like that, right? You going in there, you're like, I know, this didn't come, this was just organic. I mean, it just, you were just doing it as you were going because it felt right. But through that, you create a recipe of like, okay, this is a way to kind of impact it. And one thing we want to do is continue to kind of give back in those communities that like people look at it and they're like, oh yeah, like, nah, they don't deserve a nice restaurant. They're, you know, Compton shouldn't have a Javier's. Compton shouldn't have a Whole Foods. Why?
The grocery store,
So nobody in Compton drives from Compton to Whole Foods, nowhere, or goes to a fancy restaurant. It doesn't happen. Of course it happens.
It's taking money out of the community when they're leaving to spend money elsewhere.
So if the big boys, as I would like to call it, don't do it because they look at the statistics and say it won't work out, then someone else has got to step up and do it. And that's kind of where I kind of want to champion that change and say, let's get folks from, you know, look at your community. If I had a friend of mine who's, his wife is a yoga instructor, and he was telling me, he's like, you know, if my wife came and, you know, I said, do it. And in fact, if you need an investor, I'll love investing. Because I said, I'll tell you right now, Black and brown people, we're doing yoga, but we're just not doing it in an era where we're gonna be looked at funny and what the hell are we doing? You know, like, but if your wife comes and she's African American, it's like if she can come and do it in a place like Inglewood where you feel comfortable and you know, maybe the music is a bit more.
You see people that look like
you, and the music is something we're more used to playing. Then I'm like, it will be super successful. Because why hasn't anybody opened a yoga place here? Why hasn't there?
I know you. I mean, you probably know about the wine bars.
That's doing great. So 1010 Wine, I know the owners of 1010 Wine, and I love their concept. And I've shared it with them many times. We were hanging out at SoFi. We ran it. We had this great conversation. We were there the other day, and I love what they're doing because it's introducing like a wine place to go, because, you know, statistically speaking, we don't drink wine. Why? You know, like that's the kind of stuff I want to challenge. Just like, why not, right? And look at how successful they've been. Every time I drive by, they're busy, they're packed, and it's so beautiful. And that's Hilltop Coffee, and another great friends of mine.
You know AJ, right?
Yeah, AJ. Oh, we talked about AJ. Yeah. So you look at Hilltop Coffee and their group, right? And they're saying we could. My mom loves Hilltop Coffee, and she was like, and the other day she was like, it's not a cheap coffee, but I love paying for it because of the quality. So, but when you look at a Hilltop Coffee, if you put it here 10 years ago, people would think you're crazy. Like Hilltop. Now it's kind of like, okay, people have sold this idea that Inglewood was changing, but you know, when we started doing this 10 years or 15 years ago, people are like, what are you doing in Inglewood? Are you kidding me? You're gonna not succeed. It's gonna be horrible. Blah blah blah. But the opposite of that is true. Is the fact that, you know, people are dying need for that in their own community, and they're willing to pay for it.
The juice bar, the coffee shop, the vegan restaurants,
and that's something that, you know, I feel like is not talked about enough, and hopefully we could change that narrative and kind of encourage more people, you know, more, you know, Hilltops, more Fiesta Martins, more the folks that do the karate place. They just did a big one. They opened a big grand opening at the Big Five. They used to be a Big Five. We went there to support them. They've been supporting us for years. I love the cycling shop that has like on Fairview. They just expanded like a fitness thing over right across the street from other Fiesta.
I know exactly where that.
That's great.
Every time I drive by, it's filled with people on the cycles, working out, music.
And that's what I'm trying to tell you, that growing up in Inglewood 10 years ago, that you wouldn't see that. But I would drive by Venice and I would see it. I drive by Culver City and I would see.
Right.
I drive by Santa Monica or
Yeah.
Beverly Hills and I would see
Yep.
it. And now that it's in our community and it's either Black owned or I love that, or Hispanic owned,
Yep.
I'm like, that is beautiful to
Yes.
see that it's coming to our neighborhood and we can participate in
Yes.
those kind of like.
And recycle our dollars.
Exactly, you know, and that's something that, you know, is a beautiful thing to keep our culture and really just reinvest in our community, right? With things that we were leaving the city to do anyways.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were already leaving to go to
Yeah.
Whole Foods, but
Right.
Whole Foods doesn't want to come here. Like
Yeah.
they may look at it, oh no, Inglewood's not
Right.
going to be successful.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
Marina Del Rey will be, or you know,
Right.
Playa Vista will
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
You know, on the numbers that's good, but that's why I say again, let's get somebody in our community to say, I'll open a Whole Foods version of that,
Right,
And
right.
even though it may not have the Whole Foods name,
Right.
it'll have the Whole Foods concept,
Right.
and
The organic produce.
the
and
organic produce,
everything.
which is
Yeah.
what you're looking
Yeah.
for, and I guarantee you to be successful,
Right,
right?
right.
Because people are looking for it, but.
Yep.